Hello, let's try and fix your past tense storytelling. So in an exam, you can answer questions like, tell me about a time when you made a mistake, or tell me about a time when you felt excited. And you can explain a story. Here is a story. We were living in Papua New Guinea. It was a fairly undeveloped place. Are you looking at all the past tense verbs? Every night, my father used to go downstairs, with 2 large buckets to fill up with drinking water from the tank. Anyway, I was still sitting at the dinner table when my father came in looking very pale. He looked like he had seen a ghost. My mother became immediately concerned and made him sit down. He said he had felt. He said he'd felt a bite on his left foot. My brothers and sister and I all rushed over. Look at this past simple. And sure enough, there were 2 red prick marks on the inside of his left foot. Mum knew it was a snake bite, but what type of snake? She quickly bundled us all into the car, holding our toothbrushes. By the time we were ready to leave, Dad had gotten even worse. He couldn't even walk. My eldest brother and Mum helped him down the stairs and into the car. During the journey through the night, he was sweating, he was vomiting, he was screaming out in pain. I was scared. All of us children were dropped off at a friend's house to stay the night, while my mother drove another hour to reach the hospital. The doctor, who was Swiss, quickly identified the snake as a death adder and gave him the anti-venom medicine as quickly as possible. The nurse, who had been looking after him, went to calm my mother down. The next morning, Dad still couldn't eat, and he was dehydrated and he was very tired. But apart from that, he knew the poison had left his body. The doctor told my mum that the snake was probably only 6 to 8 months old, and if the snake had been a fully grown adult, my dad would be dead. And to this day, I have, present simple here, I still have a snake phobia. Are you scared of snakes like me? All right, there were so many different past tenses in that presentation. Let's look at past continuous. Were living, was sitting, was sweating, was vomiting, was screaming. You use past continuous to set the scene. That's the first one. We were living in Papua New Guinea at the time. This is giving background information. Or you use past continuous to explain there is an action already happening in the past when another one begins or interrupts. That's past continuous. Here is past simple. Was, were, identified, gave, and there were so many in that story. I just chose 4 here. When can you use past simple? You can describe states, conditions, permanent states of being in the past, like Papua New Guinea, when I was a child, was a fairly undeveloped country. You also need past simple to describe completed events in order, one after the other. First, the doctor identified the snake. Then the doctor gave him the medicine. But you don't need the word then, just used past simple to tell the reader it's in order. Okay, the next one is past perfect. Here are the sentences from the story. He said he'd felt. If the snake had been, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. So can you see here? We've got the he'd, had been, and he had seen a ghost. Why do we need past perfect? We need past perfect to explain that something happened before the action written in the past already. So in the first one, he said something is already in the past. Then this one happened before he said something to us. We also use past perfect to describe the opposite of what really happened in the past. This is the second sentence. The snake was a baby snake, so my dad survived. So the opposite is the snake had been an adult. And lastly, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. This is something impossible in the past. So that's past perfect, had and the verb. What about past perfect continuous? Here is a sentence from the story. The doctor, who was Swiss, did all of this, gave him the medicine. The nurse who had been looking after him. This is an earlier action than when the doctor came. The nurse had already been looking after my father when the doctor arrived. So we need past perfect continuous. Okay, there's some other verbs we can use like used to. Why do we need used to? For repeated or habits in the past. So my father used to do this every day. You can also use would. It's the same as used to, but do not use would with state verbs like be and love and taste. We don't use would with state verbs or with time expressions. Have a look at this example. I was a chubby child. I had a bedroom to myself when I was 6 years old. You cannot write I would be a chubby child because here was is a state verb. Let me just draw a line there. State verb was, so you cannot use would be. The next one has a time expression, when I was 6 years old. This is a time expression, so you cannot use would. And let's check, how can we use past continuous to express something we want to complain about? We use it with the word always. For example, look at this picture on the right. My brother was always teasing me when I was little. The little girl is complaining. My teacher was always making us laugh. Now, this one's not really annoying them, but maybe some students might complain. Okay, go to the next video now so you can do some practice with me. Well done.